Trail Pros, coming next on the Bassmasters, right here on TNN Outdoors. Today, the $5 million Bass Angler Sportsman Society's Tournament Trail drops anchor in northeastern Alabama at Lake Neely Henry on the Bass-rich Coosa River. Gadsden, Alabama is the launch point and weigh-in site for the Bassmaster Top 100 Pro-Am. On hand are the world's top-ranked fishing pros, paired with amateur partners. This is the same Coosa River that's impounded downstream by the Logan Martin and Lay Lake dams, the one that's hosted 4 Bassmasters Classic World Championships. The challenge of the Coosa brings out the best in bass anglers, as South Carolina pro Davey Height proved here last May with a winning creel of 55 pounds.
But that's all history. As you'll learn today on the Bassmasters, the current conditions, the best lure presentations, and determining what stage the bass are in this case, spawn or post-spawn, are the keys to catching bass. Being hard-headed helps.
I'm a pretty hard-headed fisherman, and it hurts me a whole lot. But right now, you need to be hard-headed right now in a deal like this. You get hard-headed and just believe the fish are there and go after them.
What Charlie Reed, the 1986 world champion, is telling us is don't let the muddy water spook you. Charlie knows that the bass are in on the bank spawning. How to make them bite, that's the key.
Okay, if the bass are trying to bed, what's the best lure choice? A chartreuse tube jig, a soft plastic lizard, or the Berkeley Power Craw? In muddy water conditions, you'll learn why and how Texas pro Alton Jones fishes the plum-colored crawfish imitation. And we've got a great mailbag question for all pro David Fritz on the proper use of boat position and casting angles in fishing offshore structure.
David Fritz is the hottest pro angler around. This season alone, he's won over $350,000. And here's one of his little secrets that gives him an edge.
What I've got a zoom centipede, and it's really not a color that you see. And actually, this color is a green pumpkin. But what I do, I like to take these chartreuse centipedes and lay them on top of them. And it sort of bleaches in with them, especially, if it stays in there 2 or 3 days. In fact, I use most of them. If you see them, they got bright spots and dark spots, and a lot of times these spotted bass, they love chartreuse anyway, and it just seemed to be the trick today. It's little bitty things like this that usually make a big difference, and that's what I'm looking for, that small edge is going to end up mounting up to 2 or 3 fish a day.
Fritz, you are something else. Hold up to folks. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Look at it now. Oh, my Lord, Hammer. This thing here was going to go over 4 pounds.
You want to bet $1?
David, here's a tip for you. Don't bet the bass boss, Ray Scott. He's the weighmaster.
I'll take 614.
14. I say 615 for $1.
You didn't say nothing?
I did, yes, it did. 8 pounds and 1 ounce, and that's have a nice hand. That is a fantastic bass. That's what I call a buck bass.
Lake Neely Henry, only 11,200 acres in size, but with the 77-mile-long serpentine-shaped Coosa River twisting over the Alabama countryside, it fishes much bigger. Upriver from Gadsden, the Bassmaster Alabama Top 100 host city, the lake quickly changes character. Backwater sloughs and small feeder creeks off the flooded old river channel are prime springtime fishing locations. With water temperatures pushing over the mid-60s, bass move into the spawning coves and pockets. Alton Jones, a Waco, Texas-based touring pro, knows this seasonal pattern is dependable. Last May, Alton fished the backwaters with great success, weighing in 51 pounds 4 ounces for a 4th-place tie with Gary Klein, another Texas pro. Well, it's May again. The timetable's on schedule, but not the conditions. Dirty water is the culprit. Heavy rains prior to the tournament muddied most areas. Visibility is poor. Sight fishing, searching for and spotting bass in the shallows, is difficult.
Tough fishing, yes, but a technique Alton Jones is not quite ready to give up on just yet. Matter of fact, it could be a blessing. The off-color water conditions could discourage other anglers from fishing the pattern.
My main pattern, though, was not sight fishing in practice. My main pattern was flipping, and I had some quality bites going on. The first day I caught about 5 limits of bass flipping, but I noticed 2 or 3 bass beginning to get on nests. So the second day I went back to those areas where they had been nesting the first day, and more bass had moved in. You know, we had the flood last week, and as the river began to settle down and clear up, more of these bass that hadn't spawned yet because it's been a cold spring began to move in and spawn.
There's another factor Alton observes about the current conditions, the river flow. In the Alabama Power Company chain of lakes, electric power generation pulls water through the dam and out of the upriver sloughs. Despite the muddy water, Alton Jones adapts to his spawning pattern. With the water level dropping, he can observe bass in the shallows. In the thin water, the bass are jittery and spook off the beds, but Alton marks the spots. With the water level higher, he can return and make repeated casts to the pinpoint spots, putting his lure right on target.
This is a really nice fish. See her right this second. She swam through a minute ago. See if she'll come back in here. Don't move, don't move, do not move. There's a 5-pounder sitting right there, suspended. Oh man, she spooked.
Spawn or post-spawn? Which pattern do you fish? Oklahoma's Kenyon Hill is working a steep bank in the dam area of Neely Henry.
And I'm targeting the post-spawn fish. They're a little more consistent, and in this color of water, they're a little easier to catch because you're not relying on seeing them. But so what I'm doing, I'm out here on these steeper banks, and the fish seem to be relating to rocks. And we've caught 2 or 3 right here, and it's a little underwater rock point. Off a slide is what it is, and you just go along these big steeper banks, or mini bluffs is what they are, with the jig, and I'm flipping with 25-pound line and 7.5-foot flipping stick. It doesn't seem to matter. I'm just throwing a green pumpkin jig with a green pumpkin mojo chunk and dyeing the tails of it chartreuse. They really like chartreuse on this lake, and with this watercolor, chartreuse is a good high visible color. And so I got kind of a subtle jig, not a real loud jig, with a little bright tail on it, you know, and it seems to be a really good color. I've tried black and blue, and I've caught a few on black and blue and some of the standard colors of jigs we throw, but this one seems to outproduce it. There's no...
At times, post-spawn bass can be difficult to catch, but as Kenyon Hill explains, at times a seasonal pattern can be right on.
Well, the post-spawn blues are primarily as soon as they come off the beds. Normally, post-spawn a week to 2 or 3 weeks after they spawn is my favorite time to fish, and it's because they're staying primarily shallow. They're cruising the banks trying to feed up after the spawn. They don't feed during the spawn, so it's a pretty stressful time for them. And a lot of the bait is all moving to the bank. The shad, I've seen them flipping around some of these rocks, and they're spawning. The sunfish will come up and spawn. So a lot of their major forage is making a push to the bank, so they're cruising the bank just feeding, and it makes fishing pretty simple.
The Bassmasters will be right back with more tips and tactics for springtime bassing. But right now, it's time for Bass Mail, where you ask the pros for how-to answers. Brad Reese writes from Iowa, The pros talk a lot about boat position and how important it can be in fishing offshore structure. Please explain. Here's David Fritz with the answer.
You know, the key is once you figure out how deep the fish are, is to position your boat so that you can make your bait come through the strike zone and keep it in there longer. And a lot of times it's hard to do. Depending on how big the break is, there's a better. I see I kept moving my boat in right here to where I got my bait, where it would stay there in the strike zone a little better. We don't need the boat position is real important. You want to keep your boat away from the break where your bait actually comes off the break and keeps coming straight for a short distance and then start to come up. So that's the whole key to trying to keep your boat. If the break is right here, I want to stay about 7 or 8 foot away from the break so my bait comes like this and comes up away from the break.
If you have a question for the Bassmaster pros, write Bass Mail, 6708 Cherrywood Trail, Montgomery, Alabama, 36117. We may answer your question on the air. When David Fritz brings in a big bag of bass, most folks think they're hitting crankbaits. Well, for sure, that's the 1993 World Champions money bait. But here at Lake Neely Henry, the Carolina rig is paying off.
God dang it. You got me anyway. You ain't gonna win no tournament, but
David's fishing the mid-lake area below the Highway 77 bridge. He's located a shallow bar near the river channel.
actually I'm just fishing just a real little flat point, and there's just a lot of gravel on it. There's no current right now. I'm throwing this little off-colored zoom centipede. And it's working it real slow. The fish are real finicky this morning. They have been. Fishing hasn't been easy for me in the morning. A lot of guys are catching theirs in the morning, and it seems like on up in the day it gets a little better. I really feel like the fish are spawning where I'm fishing. They're spawning right here, I'm pretty sure. Some of the ones I caught yesterday was just real fat with eggs. That ain't small. That there might get a little better.
Most times, fishing a Carolina rig is a drag, a slow retrieve and drag the lure along, but not always.
I'm working the bait two ways. Yesterday, when the fish gets feeding, you could almost wind your bait, and almost like a slow rolling a spinnerbait or winding a crankbait real slow. Just once it hits the bottom, just sort of keep your bait moving. And it seemed like yesterday when they got to feeding, that's how they wanted the bait. If you worked it real slow, I couldn't get the bites. So, you know, a lot of folks don't work this bait. This is pretty fast for working a Carolina rig.
That's a 5 bass daily tournament limit for David Fritz. But at the Day 2 weigh-in at the Gadsden City docks, center stage belongs to Texas pro Alton Jones.
He needs 11 pounds to take the lead. The people, Alton Jones is hot as a firecracker. He's on largemouth bass. Watch the weight. He's in the lead. 19 pounds and 12 ounces. Boom! That's what it's about.
Well, I tell you what, sometimes a plan comes together, and it's really a good feeling when it does.
Let's show them just 3 of them. Look at these. People, these are largemouth, big-time largemouth.
Alton Jones has been close, but in 7 years on the Bassmaster tournament trail, he's yet to win. This may be his big chance. With 36 pounds 6 ounces, Alton has a commanding lead. Gary Klein is the nearest threat with 29 pounds. Charlie Reed, Bud Pruitt, and Mike Otten will need big creels tomorrow to catch the leaders.
It's really no secret how I'm catching these fish. I'm sight fishing. Not very many guys are doing it. The fish are real scattered across the lake. I'm finding one over here and one over there. And I like sight fishing when the fish aren't really spawning strong, because if they're really on the beds, everybody's doing it. But the way I'm doing it now, I have the fish pretty well to myself.
Gary Klein's strategy is simple.
I came to this event knowing that I had to do it by fishing my strengths, and that's on the bank with a flip stick in my hand, and that's all I'm doing is flipping. Well, the water's real dirty, so you can't see any visible beds, and I'm fishing a 3/16 25-pound test trilene big game with a big hook, and I'm setting hook awful hard. I'm catching both buck and female, which just tells me that, that's where they want to be. They're moving into spawn, and hopefully those fish will be there tomorrow.
There's a couple of things that are really important when you're sight fishing for bedding bass. One is a good pair of polarized sunglasses. That enables you to see down into the water better, and you can actually pick out the bass that are on the beds. If you use an amber lens, that will actually highlight greens and diminish browns and make bass even more visible. The other thing is, realize the bass aren't feeding because they're hungry. You're catching these fish because they're protecting their eggs. So you want to pitch your bait in there and leave it for a long time. If the bass spooks off, don't worry about it. Leave it in the bed so that when the bass returns to the nest, your bait is there. Then leave it in the bed and just shake your rod a little bit. Make the bait quiver just a little bit, sitting in one spot. If it leaves the bed real fast, it's no longer a threat to the eggs, and the bass won't attack it. These are the baits that I use almost all the time when I'm sight fishing. In this tournament, I primarily use the plum-colored Berkeley Power Crawl. That's the bait that the bass seem to react to the best when they're on the beds. Now, most of the time, I find the tube jig to be the best, or the lizard. Color is not that important. It's different in different situations. It's a matter of trying different colors until you find which one the fish react to best.
Holding on to third place is fishing mid-lake below the Highway 77 bridge crossing. He's off the main river channel in man-made canals near a marina.
Boy, when you can snatch them out of the water like that, they're not too big, are they? I'm fishing these little old canals and sloughs. Fishing this shallow water. These fish have just made a move here. It seems like it's a little late in the year for it, but the water's been pretty cool and the weather's been cool. Fish are just now making a real good move into the back of these things. The water's soft colored. You can't see them in here, but I know they're there. And I've just been pitching this plastic at them and being real slow and easy with them. And I'm just going to stay with them. Come here. Hopefully they'll put a little water today and these fish will turn on. Because when they do, they bite good now. You just got to believe they're here, that's all.
Keep right on thinking they'll bite, Charlie. Sight fishing in muddy water is like flipping with your eyes closed. Of course, there's the flip side. You may see the fish, but you can't make it bite.
It's unbelievable how many fish I can see in here and I can't get a bite. It blows my mind. Disgusting to look at 25 pounds swimming around. Can't get a bite.
All right, here we go with Alton Jones, my good friend from Waco, Texas, folks. He needs a pound to regain the lead, folks, and he's got that. He's got one bass that's going to weigh almost a pound, and the other is going to go over 4. Watch the scale. 7 pounds and 5 ounces. That puts him solidly in the lead this tournament, people, for the big payday. And let me show you why. One cast, right spot, boom. That's what it's about right there.
That big bass keeps Alton on top the leaderboard with a 3-day weight of 43 pounds, 11 ounces. But Gary Klein's in line with a 5 bass limit.
I'm going to fix you up next year.
Looks like to me he's got enough.
He needs 14-12 to win this tournament. 14-12. That's all. Get him on there when the water drains out. It's still dripping. Still dripping. Hit him. Got to be 14-12. 14-10. 14-10. The winner by 1 ounce. With 43 pounds, 11 ounces, Alton Jones. Let's have a nice welcome. He's our winner. Alton Jones. Alton, you've done it very square.
Well, I tell you what, when you win by 1 ounce, it's simply by the grace of God.
For Alton Jones, his first BASS win pays off with $46,000, including a $1,000 bonus for the day's big bass, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. As the runner-up, Gary Klein claims $25,000. Mark Davis in third pockets $23,000. In the amateur division, Dale Bennett of Tennessee wins a $20,000 Ranger bass boat. Right now, it's time for the Pros Pointer, the champion's winning tip. Brought to you by Wrangler Rugged Wear, geared for the outdoors.
Another secret that's helped me catch a lot of big bass is to catch the male bass. A lot of times, you'll see the female cruising around and she won't quite sit down good. But if you catch the male and he's in your live well, a lot of times then the female will go sit up on the nest and lock down. One of my tricks is to actually leave the bed after I catch the male, come back in about an hour, and a lot of times you can catch that female real quick.
Next week, the Bassmaster Tournament Trail heads to Charles County, Maryland, and the Potomac River for a different bassing situation. You'll learn how the pros catch more bass in a tidal river situation. For the Bassmasters, I'm Bob Cobb. Join us right here on TNN Outdoors for all the action in the Kmart Maryland Bassmaster Top 100.
The Bassmasters has been brought to you by Chevy Trucks, Kmart, Motor Guide, Plano Tackle Systems, Wrangler Rugged Wear, and the Bass Angler Sportsman Society. Call toll-free today, 1-877-747-BASS, to plan your classic vacation. The countdown is on for New Orleans, July 29th, 30th, and 31st. Join us for the big show in the Big Easy with daily weigh-ins inside the Louisiana Superdome. Y'all come, you hear?